In this video, I'm going to break down the warning signs to look out for to know if you're dealing with a narcissist. Now, that label narcissist is something that's a common label that we throw around. We can sort of identify the behavior of narcissists, but most of us don't really truly understand what's underneath the narcissism behavior, and therefore we can't notice it, we can't manage inside of it, we can't navigate around it, and we certainly can't avoid it. Now, this is crucial because if you can't recognize and avoid the magnetic pull of narcissism, then it's almost impossible to recognize it when you're inside of the vortex. And let's be honest, it can be really damaging to a relationship and certainly to the individual that's on the wrong side of its power. But if you do recognize that you are inside the grips of narcissism, I think the only way to really remove yourself from it in a healthy way is to understand how it operates. So in this video, I'm going to break all of that down based on all the years of my experience. If you don't know me, my name is Sean Smith. I've been coaching for over 15 years. We've been really successful, made a bunch of money in this industry, but I'm really focused on the why underneath all of the behavior, because it's incredibly difficult to control anything, whether it's us or behavior from other people that are affecting us, if we don't understand it. So let's roll up our sleeves, dissect narcissism so that you can have a better handle of it or avoid it in your own life. Now stick around to the end because this is a gigantic conversation. So don't look for the shortcuts in the middle of a topic that you really need to understand completely. I'm going to jump right into the content. I want to keep this relatively short. I want to talk about why women attract narcissists in the context of a relationship. Now, the concepts that I'm going to talk about can be applied to pretty much all forms of relationship, but for the sake of this video, to keep it short and to minimize all the different trails that we could go on, I'm going to talk about a heterosexual romantic relationship where the man is the narcissist. So just so that you all know, this can be extended into many other forms of relationship and different roles and so forth. But I just want to use this as the example. So I'm going to start and end with the same thing. Wounded masculinity is terrified of healthy feminine energy. And healthy feminine energy isn't attracted to wounded masculine energy. So that's really the key thing that we're talking about here. And I'm going to break this down because I want to talk about solutions, right? And this video might not be popular for a lot of people because I really am only interested in identifying clarity around the solutions, not clarity around problems and not divisiveness and separation and all these labels that we have. I want to look at the actual solution. And the definition of narcissism is somebody who has this not overriding, but just too high of love for themselves, basically, right? But that's a subjective definition. We don't really have how do we know that, right? We don't have a ceiling clearly identified to where the self-love then becomes narcissistic. So the connotation of narcissism isn't necessarily the same for everybody. And that's where I think a lot of the challenges come in. And so most of the conversation is really about what narcissism is and how bad they are, basically, how bad these people are. And since you don't ever want to run across and become victimized by a narcissist, then you want to learn how to spot them. And once you learn how to spot them, you want to be able to avoid them. And there's just a lot of shame on the idea of narcissism, but there's not a lot of clarity on the boundaries of narcissism. And it's all focused on them. It's all focused on the problem and the people who are displaying the problem. So there's two issues with that. Number one, that's not a solution. We can identify the problem all we want, but that's not really going to solve anything. It just gives us more things to be afraid of, basically, and more ways to avoid. But number two, I mean, if we're talking about narcissists, then isn't that what they want anyway? Is more people talking about them? So the bottom line is that's not really truly the issue. We have to go after what the actual issue is, and it's kind of like drug dealers, right? Drug dealers are not the problem. It's the fact that millions and millions of people demand drugs that create the need or the opportunity. That's a much better word for the drug dealers. So if we just focus on the drug dealers, how to spot them and how to punish them, then that doesn't actually change the demand for the drugs. Now, I'm not saying that women are demanding narcissism. I'm just saying that we have to look at what the actual root element is. And so the focus of this video is going to be the attraction inside of this heterosexual relationship, as I said, where the man is the narcissist. And this isn't theory. I've been coaching women for 14 years, and this comes up all the time. So this is based on what I've learned inside this conversation. It's not just academic theory here. And the analogy that I'm going to use is with sharks. And sometimes I hesitate to even use it because I don't want to make it sound like I'm making a values judgment on narcissists. And so if you can separate yourself from any kind of values judgment of this analogy, I think it really works. The bottom line is sharks smell blood in the water. You've probably heard some form of that analogy. And where there's blood, sharks will generally show up. So when people are trying to attract the sharks, what they do is they put a big carcass in the water, or they dump a bunch of blood in the water, and pretty soon the sharks that are smelling the blood are going to show up. And that's the attraction element that's at play here. So the wound that a lot of women have of inadequacy, the low self-esteem, the unworthiness, the I'm not good enough, that wound is bleeding. And that wound usually creates the desire for attention. Right? If somebody can tell me that I'm good enough, if somebody can show me love, if somebody can help fill this void, then I'm going to be attracted to that person. But that kind of attention doesn't heal the wound. It just pacifies the wound. It's just a temporary numbness of this wound. And let's be clear, I'm not in any way blaming the woman. I'm not defending narcissists. I'm not defending men. This isn't shaming or anything like that, because I'm talking about the wound. I'm not talking about the woman. So the woman is not attracting whatever experience she's having from the narcissist, but the wound is attracting it. And then simultaneously, the wound inside the narcissist is smelling the wound inside the woman. So this is wounded attraction here. And if we can get rid of the attraction both ways, then we can actually have a solution. Now, I'm not going to dive deep into this. I'm only going to spend about 15, 20 seconds on it. The wound inside of the men is a wound of their masculinity, which is causing them to display all the traits of narcissism. So that wound can be healed as well, so that healthy, safe men don't show narcissistic behaviors, right? But it's not that people are born narcissists. It's a learned behavior based on the wound. But again, for the purpose of this video, just to finish off here, the wound inside the female body is what's doing the attracting. It's what's actually causing the lustful attraction toward people who are otherwise not safe. Now, you as a woman, if this is resonating with you as a woman, if you've had experience with a bunch of narcissistic relationships in the past, you're not the problem. You are not broken. But there's a magnet, there's a beacon that's sending off a signal that's attracting the people who want to feed off of that wound. And so the question that we have to ask ourselves is, if you're identifying with the woman in this relationship, or if you just identify with being a victim of any kind of narcissism, the question you have to ask yourself is a very fundamental, elementary, very disruptive, and very irritating question. The question is, do you want to keep bleeding Do we want to keep allowing the wound to bleed and then only be able to try to identify and fend off the sharks? Or do we want to stop the bleeding? And it's a fundamental question, because however you answer the question is going to determine the next step. It's an irritating question, as I said. It's a very disruptive question because a lot of people don't want to look inside. A lot of people don't want to look in the mirror. It's just easier to identify the badness of other people and make them wrong. And I'm, again, not defending the actions of anything that fits into narcissistic behavior. I'm just saying that's not where the solution is. And if your whole life inside the context of relationships is being spent trying to identify who the dangerous people are, who the narcissists are, and then try to protect yourself by armoring up so that they can't hurt you, it's going to be really difficult for a couple of reasons. Number one, they're really good at deception. That's one of the things that allows a narcissist, an abuser of any kind, to perpetuate the abuse. They have to be good at deception. They have to be good at flattery. So you're kind of walking into the lion den there if you're trying to identify the liars inside of a group of people that are really, really, really good at lying. And then the other piece of this is that you'll just spend your whole life in constant fear. You spend your whole life in wondering if this person is potentially pulling a fast one on you, if they're going to change later on. And when we have the worry about all the catastrophe that might be in the future for us, especially if we can't identify it now and do anything about it, then it puts us in more of a victim place because we're afraid of things happening to us and we can't do anything about it right now in the moment, because the fear is really what's going to happen in the future. Can I trust this person? Because the last person that I trusted ended up hurting me. So now I don't trust my own trust. So this state of constant turmoil and constant turbulence and constant fear is the result of that. So when the wound stops bleeding, two things happen. The sharks won't be attracted anymore because there's not blood in the water, but then the wound will stop being attracted to the attention that the sharks want to give. And when you show up in a more clean, healthy way like that, then here's the cool thing. It'll be so much easier to actually identify the dangerous people. They will make themselves known and you will see it so much more clearly than if you're looking through the perspective of your own wound. So I'm going to end the same way I started, and hopefully this makes a lot of sense after the discussion. Wounded masculinity inside the narcissistic body is terrified of healthy femininity. It's terrified of the healthy feminine energy. It's like a bully. A bully does not choose the black belt to pick on. Why? Because the bully knows the black belt will probably kick its butt. The bully chooses somebody that the bully believes it can dominate. So the woundedness inside of narcissists, inside of bullies, inside of any kind of form of wounded masculinity is not interested in health. It's not interested in strength. It's not interested in attacking anything that it thinks can win against it. It's interested in going after what it's perceiving to be somewhat of an easy domination, somewhat of an easy fight, somewhat of an easy deception. So wounded masculinity is terrified of the healthy feminine energy, and the healthy feminine energy isn't attracted to the wounded masculine. So you will no longer be attracted to the attention in the way that it shows up when it's coming from a wounded source. So you won't have to manage any temptation. That's one of the things that make a lot of people struggle with this is they're still attracted, but then all they can do is try to manage the temptation of the attraction. It's so much easier to turn the beacon off, stop the wound from bleeding, and stop attracting the wound. So, like I said, it's a disruptive conversation. I get it. We're not going to solve everybody's individual issues inside of a 13, 14-minute video. There's so many different tangents that we can go along, and I'd love for you to put whatever questions you have, comments you have in the comment section here underneath the video. I will respond at some point quickly and get back to you. And here's an invitation that I have for you. If this is resonating with you on any level, let us support. This is the work that we do. We do what I call neurotransformational healing, neurotransformational coaching. And a lot of times in this particular context of the example that I gave, a lot of times the women don't realize that they're actually giving off any kind of this energy, this attraction. So again, it doesn't mean that you are wounded if you've been in any kind of narcissistic relationship. It means that there is a wound. It doesn't mean that you, the woman, the body, the human is broken, but there's something there. So let us help you identify what it is and clear it. So my invitation for you, which I'll put a link below in the description, is to get on the phone with one of our coaches and allow us to help you heal this wound. I'm just committed to healing people as much as we possibly can. So if we got you in the conversation, if you're resonating with any of this on any level, then let us support you in the best way we know how, which is to heal this wound inside. And this goes for the men too. I know there might be men watching this that know that you display some of these traits and you don't really know how to just shut them off. And we can support you with healing whatever that wound inside of you is as well. Now, if you like this video, take a look at that video where I dissect a related topic of masculinity in our world today. But number two, I used to be a bully. So I was a product of these three ingredients that I'm going to talk to you about, and I know what I needed to do at least to heal myself.